Good evening and welcome to Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm Matt Volz. We've got a full show to get to tonight, and to start off, I've got Jenna alongside me to talk about the pretty interesting action going on as NFL free agency has begun. A lot of teams making moves, including the Bills. What are some of the bigger ones you've had your eye on so far, Jenna?
Honestly, I mean, it keeps going, and I think it's definitely worth noting that the free agency or the new NFL year doesn't actually start until tomorrow at 4 p.m. So none of these trades have technically been finalized, but they've basically been finalized. One of the things, especially, I think we should go to this man right behind here, Josh Allen. He got re-signed. I believe it's a 6-year extension with Bills, $330 million. So that's very good. Very excited about that.
Yeah, it's the Allen contract, too, you knew was something that was going to happen, and this is obviously a statement that the Bills are making, and it's a hefty chunk of change that they're paying to their franchise quarterback, but compared to some of the other quarterbacks in the game, it's not necessarily the craziest payday. I think that the biggest thing is that the Bills, with this move, are committing themselves to Allen. We saw it last year that they didn't have a star wide receiver last year. Josh Allen, as the screen shows, won the MVP. So I think the conversation is, as long as we've got 17 under center, we can afford to not have the greatest offensive weapons around him, and he'll lead us to where we want to go and hopefully get them to a Super Bowl at some point. So what else have you had your eye on, Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, definitely just speaking back about the Bills again, I mean, we signed wide receiver Josh Palmer. He is from the LA Chargers. After that, the other shoe dropped, and Matt Collins was traded to the Patriots. So that happened. But if we're talking about quarterbacks, it's kind of been a hefty ride in terms of quarterbacks moving around. One of the biggest ones I've seen is Geno Smith is being traded to the Raiders. However, from what I've seen, his contract is not finalized yet, so he will be going into Nevada without that happening. Aaron Rodgers is still kind of deciding between the Pittsburgh Steelers and I believe the Minnesota Vikings, and yeah, just some crazy moves, really.
If Rodgers ends up going to the Vikings, that will just completely prove that time is a flat circle, because in following with the Brett Favre arc of several years with the Green Bay Packers, winning a Super Bowl, winning MVPs, then this young guy kind of comes up, forces him out, and he ends up going to the Jets and has a very lackluster tenure there, which features a major injury. And then after that, he goes to the Vikings. It would just fully prove the time's a flat circle. If Rodgers goes to the Vikings and is maybe really good this year, I don't think that's going to happen, but if that were to take place, that would be sort of interesting. And I know there's a couple other teams. You mentioned the Steelers, and I know the Giants are potentially talking to Rodgers as well, which would be fascinating.
One thing I have heard within like the past 15 minutes, it's not confirmed, no one really knows, but Antonio Brown is saying that there is a 2-year deal that Rodgers has signed with the Steelers. But I mean, do we really trust that very much? I mean,
it is Antonio Brown, so. You say that anything would have to be taken with a grain of salt. I think anything said by Antonio Brown probably has to be taken with a gallon of salt, if I'm being completely honest. But there's been some other moves. The Jets, of course, with Aaron Rodgers now gone. The Jets filling that hole, signing Justin Fields away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Fields is the type of player, I've talked about this with Jack on the show before. I like Justin Fields. I think he has some talent. The poor guy has never been in an offensive situation that is designed for him to win. He played quarterback for the Chicago Bears, which is essentially a purgatory/death sentence in the NFL. Then he went to a Pittsburgh Steelers offense that was led by Arthur Smith, who probably couldn't competently run a Pop Warner 4th grade offense. Now he goes to the New York Jets, which are one of these sports organizations that are in conversation with the Buffalo Sabres for being the biggest clown show in professional sports. So I feel bad for him that it seems like this is the third time that he's now with a team that really doesn't know how to put things together, but Fields did choose the Jets, and it'll be interesting to see how he does. I mean, there are weapons there. He's got Breece Hall, who's a very solid running back he'll be handing the ball off to. Former Ohio State teammate Garrett Wilson is the Jets' #1 receiver. So there's potential there. The Jets are also a team that there's talent in certain areas on the defense. Not sure where that's going to go. They have a new head coach, obviously, with Robert Saleh being fired midseason last year and Jeff Ulbrich not brought back. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And it's between Rodgers and also Russell Wilson still in the open market as well. I don't know that he'll go back to Pittsburgh, so there's some other potential options for him.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you and Jack from the past. I also do like Justin Fields. I think, especially, I believe he played the first 1 or 2 games for the Steelers seasons until he was ultimately beat by Russell Wilson for that starting position. And honestly, I saw a lot of potential within that. I didn't think he played bad at all. But yeah, if we're going back to that kind of scenario with 2 quarterbacks competing, we're going to see that in this offseason with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. Daniel Jones was just signed to a 1-year contract, and he's not a backup. So we're going to see that competition between that. I know Richardson is ready for that. His manager has said that. Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I want to know how former Sports Hour host Trevor Hauer feels about the 2 quarterbacks of his Indianapolis Colts being Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, after the way both of those players played last year.
Tell us in the comments.
Can't imagine he's thrilled. Yes, we would love to hear in the comments how Trevor feels about the Colts quarterback situation this year. I can imagine not well, and that is something that I can sympathize with being a Bills fan. Before this guy came along, we were going from rough quarterback to, in some cases, even rougher quarterback. So certainly understand how that feels. But going back to the Bills, they got a handful of major players re-signed. That you talk about a lot of the players from that 2022 draft class that was so loaded. You think about Terrell Bernard was the 3rd-round pick in that draft. Bernard gets re-signed. Khalil Shakir gets re-signed. Christian Benford gets re-signed. Greg Rousseau was re-signed as well, getting a decent amount of money. And, of course, the Bills announcing that they cut Von Miller, which I read a comment that said that the Bills' experience with Von Miller was like owning a boat. The 2 happiest days are the day you get it and the day you get rid of it. And I think that that's not entirely fair. I mean, Von Miller, when he first came to Buffalo in 2022, was sort of billed as the game changer on the defensive line that the Bills so desperately needed after their 13 seconds playoff loss to the Chiefs. And through the first half of that 2020 season, Von Miller was fantastic. He was exactly what the Bills were hoping to get from him. Then he tears up his knee in Detroit on Thanksgiving. Absolutely was never the same player after that. And then you had all the issues off the field with his arrest down in Texas, and the discussions surrounding all of the legal business around that. And I think overall the Von Miller tenure was definitely a major disappointment for Buffalo. I mean, that was a big swing for the fences that Brandon Beane made, and it's unfortunate because it will be looked at as a failure, but I don't know that that's entirely fair because, like I said, Jenna, before he went down on Thanksgiving Day 2022, he was really good. He was really effective on that Bills defensive line.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't think anyone has picked up Von Miller yet. I think that's still up in the air, but we have already signed another edge. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, but he's from the Rams, and we signed him for 3 years. So, yeah, I mean, the Bills just kind of what I've been seeing from this offseason, from the kind of contracts that are being signed. It is not so much as we are trying to get these huge franchise players. More so, we know that the players that we already have are solid, and with Josh Allen in quarterback, pretty much we don't need a star wide receiver, in my opinion. As long as you have him, he will kind of be able to make any wide receiver look good. But going off of that and the Bills and the contracts they have made, one they haven't made yet is James Cook. They have not re-signed the running back. He has been on social media saying some things. He is looking to get about $15 million per year, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, that's Saquon Barkley, that's Christian McCaffrey money.
Yeah, exactly. And as good as James Cook was as a part of that Bills offense last year, if you're going to pay him top tier running back money, I think there's still some elements of his game that we need to see. And the biggest thing, I think, is his ability receiving the ball. I think that that was an element where sometimes it was there, but sometimes you want Cook to be the type of running back who can break out on one of those wheel routes out of the backfield and be able to catch a pass and be able to act as a receiver. That's what made back in the Bills' Super Bowl years in the early 90s, that's what made Thurman Thomas so great, was because Thurman Thomas was not only an excellent runner, he was, at that time, he was the best receiving back in the NFL. I describe him to fans who have never quite seen the highlights and clips from the early 90s Bills that Thurman Thomas was basically Christian McCaffrey before Christian McCaffrey, and he was Marshall Faulk a few years before Marshall Faulk broke onto the scene. So that's the type of element, obviously not saying that James Cook has to be Thurman Thomas. That's a little bit of a lofty expectation to place on his shoulders, but I think there's added elements of his game that you would like to see. Not only that, it's become sort of a thing with NFL front offices. They don't want to pay their running backs because they do get injured a lot. Look at what happened with Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers last year. Running backs have a very short shelf life in the NFL, where typically for a lot of them, once they get on, quote-unquote, the wrong side of 30, it becomes very difficult for them to maintain that same form. They just don't have as long of a prime on average as your other positions do. So it's a conversation that the Bills are definitely going to have throughout the summer, whether they pay Cook. I love him as a part of the offense. I'm not sure if they're going to look at potentially trading him. We'll see how it goes.
I mean, especially, I believe Cook is on his last year of his rookie contract. He's still got a lot of development. He did lead the league in, I believe, rushing touchdowns for running backs last year. So there is that. Another thing that can kind of, I guess, set the precedent for potentially paying him this much. Saquon Barkley just had a historical deal. He was given a $41.2 million extension for 2 years. That makes him the first running back in history to make more than $20 million in a season. So I believe there's some quotes out there from articles Barkley has done where he is trying to pave the way for running backs to be paid kind of to that level. I mean, I think he's not speaking that much money, but I can kind of understand where he's going. And yeah, Cook definitely has a lot more development to do. He has done very well for this offense, and I would hate to see him go, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, the way that Cook played last year, he really had kind of a breakout year last year. I mean, he led the league in rushing touchdowns. He was very good. I mean, it's not that Cook is not worth an extension, a substantial extension. I don't know that he's worth the type of money that Saquon Barkley got with the Eagles last offseason. It's a risky game to play, sort of, because you did just extend all these other players, but the money you give to Cook now takes that away from other positions of need. You've got a hole at safety on your roster. I mean, Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin were fine at times. Overall, maybe not quite good enough. I've argued that the Bills' defensive line is nowhere near good enough, and I really think that another game-changing pass rusher needs to be added. Now, obviously, we've already seen it, Max Crosby re-signing with the Raiders and Myles Garrett re-signing with the Browns. So those type of players are off the table, but you might be able to go swing a trade for a decent pass rusher. The other thing, too, though, Jenna, is that as far as the defensive line is concerned, this is a very good draft class for defensive linemen. So I'm wondering if we'll see the Bills hold off on sort of a big home run move for an established name and try and build their D-line through the draft.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see, especially with these free agency moves that have happened, how it's going to affect certain teams and their positions in the draft, who they're looking for, potentially. But yeah, I am anxious to see what the Bills do, what they continue to keep doing.
Yeah, it's I think that the goal of this offseason was sort of just to maintain, get some of your bigger extensions done, obviously get the Allen deal done. But I also think that the goal is, you're looking at the draft, and the Bills are probably looking at it saying, okay, we were 3 points away from the Super Bowl last year. We don't have that many more moves that need to be made to sort of get us over the top for sure. Well, thanks for joining me for NFL action, although you're not going anywhere. You're going to be right here to talk about the NHL.
Right here.
That's right, the two matching goat head jerseys, in case you couldn't notice. I have my Darlene. She has her Ukko Pekkalukanen on, which is fantastic, celebrating the win last night. And we're going to talk about the NHL when we come back. I'm Matt Volz, and you're watching Sports Hour on WNYF.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service. We've been down there. Post office. You gotta do the same. Post office. All you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For Selective Service. It takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For Selective Service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm Matt Volz. I'm now rejoined by Jenna Polito to talk about the NHL and a great win for the Sabres last night in the Goathead uniforms as Buffalo takes down the Edmonton Oilers 3-2. Jenna, your thoughts on the game?
Honestly, I was not able to watch this game, but what I do know is that we played the Edmonton Oilers, which they have my previous favorite Sabres player, Jeff Skinner, and I do believe there was a super heartfelt video that was shown there. That was great. But yeah, Sabres came out. They won 3-2. Tage Thompson, I believe, had 2 goals within this game. And honestly, after a skid of 6 losses in a row, this is kind of, I'm hoping, the momentum that we need, especially after the trade deadline, and we have a few new faces. So yeah, it's just interesting to see where that's going to go from that.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about some of the new faces, of course, the moves that were made at the deadline, the biggest one being Dylan Cousins, traded to the Ottawa Senators, and the final details of that deal, the Sabres trading Cousins as well as Dennis Gilbert and a second-round pick to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for Josh Norris and defenseman Jacob Bernard Docker. And Norris picked up his first point as a Sabre. He picked up an assist on one of the 2 Tage Thompson goals in the win over Edmonton last night. And this is a type of move that, I know Dylan Cousins scored a goal with Ottawa the other night, and he was brought out. He was the second star of the game. They interviewed him. He talked about how, it's nice to be on a team that is fighting for a playoff spot. And that's absolutely true. I also think that part of the reason why the Sabres aren't fighting for a playoff spot is because players like Dylan Cousins couldn't be bothered to defend their teammates. But that's beside the point. The Sabres made a move. They identified a need. They made a move. And while I don't love trading Gilbert, I don't know why Gilbert was the defenseman moved. I could think of a few other players that probably could have been before Gilbert. I don't really understand why that was the decision, but whatever. and the Sabres bring in Josh Norris to fill a hole on that second line. And the hope is that Norris can be what Dylan Cousins was not able to live up to in Buffalo. Remember, Cousins scored 31 goals 2 years ago. His goal total plummeted to 15 this year, and he was absolutely nowhere to be found most times on the ice this season. So Cousins is a player that definitely needed a change of scenery, and you wonder how many other players like that there are on this Sabres team. Of course, some other moves were made. The Sabres also trading Henry Jokiharju to the Boston Bruins in exchange for a 4th-round pick. So Jokiharju, you are free from me making fun of you on Sports Hour every single week. You are finally free at last.
It did kind of work last time because I believe he scored a goal.
Yes, it did. It did. I picked on him, and then he scored a goal at the Four Nations.
And it was beautiful.
It was a beautiful goal, which is just absolute proof that in the world of professional sports, bullying works, and that's kind of what Sabres fans know very well. They did it to Tage Thompson. They did it to Casey Middlestep before he got traded. They did it to Sam Reinhart before it was even Tage. So, I think the win overall for Buffalo sort of showed what they can be as a team, and it was not a perfect win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was definitely standing on his head. The Sabres power play was awful as per usual.
Yeah.
That's really, that's no surprise there. The penalty kill was also not good, but I will say the Oilers have a phenomenal power play. They really do. And Edmonton's power play is what I wish Buffalo's man advantage would play more like. I mean, the Sabres at 5-on-5, I don't know if I have the exact number right, Jenna, but I believe they are like 3rd in the league in goals scored at 5-on-5. So it shows that this team has the ability to put the puck in the back of the net, but they can't do it on the man advantage. And it's been incredibly frustrating that when your power play is as absolutely disgustingly awful as the Sabres power play is, and when your defense is, out to lunch or on the other side of the Peace Bridge when you're in your defensive zone, it's kind of tough to win, Jenna.
Yeah, honestly, going back to that Dylan Cousins trade, what you're saying about him not being that physical of a player in his time at Buffalo, not really standing up for his teammates, he had 9 hits in his first game as a Senator, which I think kind of speaks volumes. This could be the Sabres effect, or again, it could just be kind of the likes of someone being tired and kind of fed up in the position that they're in, that they're not really reaching their full potential that we thought that Cousins could. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember also seeing something about that. We're pretty high up in the league when it's 5-on-5 with goals. I know we're definitely surpassed the Bruins and the Rangers. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see, especially like mixed with our power play, how crazy things can get or how terrible things can also get. Right before this game, we had a game with the Florida Panthers, which we lost 4-0. And yeah, that was not really too surprising. But
no, absolutely not. You said Cousins had 9 hits with Ottawa in that
I think
game.
That's why he had the second star.
Yeah, did he have 9 hits in his entire tenure with the Buffalo Sabres?
I don't think he had any.
I don't think so. I think that Cousins sort of garnered a reputation for being one of the softest players on the team, and I'll be completely honest, to be one of the softest players on the Buffalo Sabres, that takes some doing, absolutely. And Matthias Samuelsson knows that well. Just ask him, he'll show you. So I think that the Sabres, you have players on this team that now maybe you're thinking, all right, we added Josh Norris. At this point, we're definitely out of the playoffs. There's a familiar place for the Sabres to be. We're definitely out of the playoffs, so
13.
See what you can put together towards the end of the season. And it's time for their annual, 4-game win streak at the end of the season where you think maybe next year they'll be good. And then Kevin Adams does absolutely nothing in the offseason, but he's a great general manager because he knows how to teach 12-year-olds how to play hockey. And I will say that I think a lot of 12-year-olds definitely are smarter and have more hockey sense than most of the players on the ice.
I don't understand what has happened with Kevin Adams and why something has not really been done recently. We've seen a lot of moves within the coaching staff within the past. Lindy Ruff, he's doing okay. I don't think as well as any of us have or hoped, especially when he was coming back to Buffalo at the beginning of this season. Right. However, I am calling for a change. I would like to see Kevin Adams. Bye-bye.
Well, I mean, I think that his job could be certainly easier. All we got to do is just plant some palm trees in the cobblestone district. And
Yeah, because I
then
mean,
players
like
will want to come here,
they
right?
don't like the taxes. I mean,
They don't like the taxes, of course. So just get a chance to sit under a palm tree in the 20-degree weather because, I mean, we all know that the Buffalo Sabres would rather do anything than learn how to get better at the game of hockey. That's been abundantly clear for the last decade plus. You know, when you have an organization that is far more interested in making excuses at every single turn than actually figuring out how to get better and how to build a hockey team, you have a general manager, I'm not going to stick on this point for too long, you have a general manager who is far more interested in making excuses about why his job is so hard than actually being able to build a winning hockey team. Every single time Kevin steps in front of the mic, you know he's going to get up there and he's going to whine about something. You know that he's going to talk about, deals just didn't go through. You know, it's hard to make a deal in this league. That's fantastic.
is it really?
It's your job. It's your job to, I don't care if it's hard. No one in this room, no one in Western New York cares if it's hard. That's great. It's difficult to make a deal. Cool. Guess what? It's hard for the people at WNYF to put on this show, but we do it because it's our job. Do we say, well, we can't do Sports Hour tonight, guys. It's too hard. It's too difficult to put on the show tonight. No. We go to the station, we put on our hard hats, and we do what we need to do because that's the job that we were brought in to do. It's unbelievable that it is that difficult to have some accountability in a professional sports front office where your general manager is spending more time complaining and whining about how his job is so hard. I understand your job is so hard. I know that your job is to figure out what type of coffee that Terry wants in the morning. I know that's really, really difficult.
I think
But do your job.
I think the most difficult part of his job, and I just looked this up. This is not confirmed because it is not released to the public, but for a salary of about $2 million per year, I think that you can make some sacrifices, you can do some hard things, and do your job. As you were saying, Matt, like at WNYF here, surprise, surprise, we are all college students. We do not get paid for this. We certainly do not get paid $2 million.
Nope.
So just something to chew on.
Interesting, something to think about. $2 million is a lot of palm trees too, Jenna.
That is a
They
lot
could
of
probably
palm
plant a
trees,
lot
yeah.
of palm trees, you know. And I'm thinking maybe in the cobblestone
They could probably
district.
like get like a greenhouse or something
Oh,
and
yeah.
get them. Yeah. it
Oh
would be
yeah, you know
great.
what? Just take out the French Connection statue because the team doesn't really care about their history either. So you could just put the palm trees right in there and have a grand old time. Maybe have some coconut trees if you want. We'll do that.
Why
We'll
not?
add that to the mix.
Why not?
It sounds like it'll be absolutely fantastic, and it's all joking aside. The frustration is immense. In case you couldn't believe it, there was a report today from
The
Paul
Rasmus Dahlin
Bissonnette.
thing?
Yeah, from Paul Bissonnette, who, yeah, Biz, trusted news hockey source, for sure. Anyways, there was a report that he said Dahlin spoke with Kevin Adams, and he said if this doesn't turn around and get better fast, I'm out of here. Reporters talked to Dahlin about it today after practice, and he was like genuinely caught off guard by those comments. Dahlin had no idea where any of that was coming from, and wait a minute, you mean to tell me that Paul Bissonnette got something wrong? You mean to tell me that Biz, the guy who couldn't even make it as a fourth liner on the Arizona Coyotes, doesn't know what he's talking about for hockey?
I mean,
Crazy development,
It was
Jenna.
definitely very refreshing to see Rasmus Dahlin kind of like defending, like, yes, we are not in a good position. Being with the Sabres for his entire professional career, he has never really been in the position he wants, but it was really great to see someone kind of defend that claim and defend, like, I've never really felt that I wanted to leave, and just kind of feel supported in that way. Like, he has our backs, so we are going to have his. However, one thing I did want to bring up, that Henry Jokiharju trade to the Bruins was actually requested by him, which doesn't surprise me very much. However,
Yeah. I mean, do you really have room to request a trade when every time you step out on the ice you look like one of the 12-year-olds that Kevin Adams is trying to teach how to play hockey? And that's an insult to the 12-year-olds, to be completely honest. So No disrespect to anyone who learns at the Academy of Hockey. It's a fine institution, and we all know that that's the next logical step after teaching kids how to play hockey at Harbor Center is to become a professional hockey GM. But it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out for Buffalo. I mean, you've got Josh Norris into the fold. Not sure where Bernard Docker's going to play. I would imagine probably Rochester, as the Amherst are a team that they're playing for a championship. The Amherst are in first place. Maybe if you're looking for hockey to watch and not get so angry you want to throw a glass object at your television, maybe watch the Rochester Americans play.
Or if you're looking to go to KeyBank Center, maybe go see a Bandits game. But Lily will talk about that later.
Lily will talk about that later, even though we're a little bit frustrated with the Bandits right now from their loss the other night.
We still love them.
We'll get on that later. We still love them. It's like have you ever seen, it's the Gordon Ramsay meme?
Yeah.
It's comparing how he treats, like, the show that he has with the kid chefs versus the adult chefs. And one of the kids makes a mistake and he's really upset. And Gordon goes right over to him. He's like, no, like, darling, it's all right. And he's like, here, let me get to try this. Oh, this is fantastic. You're doing such a great job. And then, an adult, he grabs 2 pieces of bread and holds it on their head and says, what are you?
Well, you want to know why? It's because the Bandits have count them, 6 within their entire franchise history, 6 trophies.
That's right.
How many do the Sabres have? 0.
Are we talking about participation trophies? Because I don't think they're even good enough to get those.
Oh, I mean, yeah, if you want to include those.
We would rather, the organization is pretty much built off of being completely fine with not being very good. So that's been the story of Terry's tenure. But so many people have asked me, it's like, what do you do to fix the Sabres? And that's a loaded question because I don't really think it's a possible question with Terry Pegula as the owner. I think we're kind of stuck. But
you find a new team to support. Maybe.
If I'm looking at specific things on the ice, get a real power play coach. I mean, Seth Appert, bringing him up from Rochester, that's cute. Sure, whatever. Not in the NHL. Bye. I mean, he had success with the Amherst. Cool. Bye. I don't care. Bring in someone who actually knows how to run a power play. And I know that's challenging because no one knows how to do anything in that organization. But bring in someone who actually knows how to put together a solid power play. Get some defensive depth, for crying out loud. I mean, it's ridiculous that outside of Dahlin and sometimes Power and every once in a while Byram, they can defend. Matthias Samuelsson might as well be in a different country in the defensive zone, but maybe, Jenna. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I mean, hopefully it's when I am still, I guess, young enough.
On this green earth, yes.
Or, yeah, even then, who knows? I mean, the only thing I do know is that if the Jets make the playoffs before us, I am going to be so upset. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be able to go on.
Thank goodness for the New York Jets is the moral of the story.
Yes.
Because the Jets are the only thing keeping the Sabres from being the biggest embarrassment in sports in all of North America. Well, thanks for joining me, Jenna. I know we got a little heated on this particular segment, but
it's
I think
okay. We let it out.
I think every Sabres fan shares it and understands it for sure. So when we come back, Lily Hauer is going to join me to recap the Bandits' loss to Calgary on Saturday night, but look forward to the rest of the Bandits season and recap some of their trade deadline acquisitions. We'll be back in a few minutes. I'm Matt Volz, and you're watching Sports Hour on WNYF.
When you think of the local lowdown, what do you think of?
Well, when I think of the local lowdown, it's the live music that we have played in the studio.
It's got to be the laughs we shared, the memorable moments during the whole thing. Oh my God, so fun.
The local lowdown for me is the people behind the scenes, the amazing team that we have making the show.
Oh, it's gotta be exploring all sorts of genres and music I've never heard before.
Oh, easy. Going out to shows and talking to artists and getting the latest news on what they have planned for the future.
It's about these artists, man. Giving them a platform to showcase what they've worked so hard on and show their music to the community. It's all about supporting the local scene of music to keep it running for years to come. And of course, the band merch. You can't forget about the merch.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. I'm Matt Voltz. I'm now joined by Lily Hauer for our NLL segment of the show. And Lily, it's been a busy weekend for the Bandits and a rough Saturday night for sure.
It definitely was. First things first, we need to talk about this trade deadline. Big things are happening for Buffalo. We just lost Sam LaRue. Boo-hoo. I don't care. We just lost him. He's now in Ottawa. We have gotten Ron John, and a 2025 third-round draft pick. So excited about Mr. Ron John joining the Bandits. He used to play for the New York Riptide. Now he's on the Ottawa Black Bears, which have taken over for the New York Riptide. He gave us a run for our money so many times. This kid is insane. He's like 26, I think, so nice young talent. He's a Western New York guy himself, so love to see that. He probably grew up watching the Bandits. So excited for that. And we also got veteran Keel Matisse, I want to say, and a fourth-round draft pick. And he has been in this league for 10 years now. So I am so excited to have him come in. I think he can be like a great leader, maybe a Steve Priolo type, which we will get into Mr. Steve Priolo in just a minute. But I think he's going to be a great addition to the team. I'm really happy. I'm really excited with these changes that we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. The trade, when it was first announced, the trade with Ottawa to bring in Ron John, I was really surprised. It seems like an absolute steal for Buffalo. I mean, I don't mean to be too critical of Sam LaRue, but he did not play well when he was in for Buffalo whatsoever. And so to see him and a second moved, and you're bringing in Ron John, who, as you said, was really tough when the Ottawa Black Bears were in New York last year. He's a good player, and funny. So when I was in high school, right, I had this chemistry teacher. His name was Ron Johnson.
Oh.
And we all called him Ron John.
So that's him. Now he's on the Bandits.
So that's him. Now he's
great.
on the Bandits. Now Mr. Johnson is on the Buffalo Bandits, and that is super cool.
Maybe he can get you some free tickets.
He could totally give me free tickets. He could. We already have the seasons, but like, I'll take a refund.
He'll get you more. It's fine.
I'll take a nice refund check for my seasons.
Yeah, maybe he'll add on like 2 more. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me some lower level passes, something like that. I mean,
100%.
I mean, the Bandits, it might be a little bit trickier to do that. Sabres, you'd pretty much just give them away on the side of the street for free, but. Yeah,
I'll pay you to take my Sabres tickets.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I thought these were some really solid moves for the Bandits. You know, you're bringing in Ron John. He's a somewhat experienced player, but he's a younger player too. I think remember last year at the deadline, the Bandits made 2 key moves. They brought in Connor Farrell from the PLL because they were getting destroyed at the faceoff dot, and made the trade to bring in Paul Dawson. And those were 2 moves that those 2 players really fueled a run to the championship last year. And I think Ron John could absolutely have a similar effect on the team this year. Obviously, on Saturday, it was a rough loss, but even before that, there were some other notable trades made at the deadline. The biggest one being the Calgary Roughnecks standoff with Christian Del Bianco is finally over as he was traded to the Vancouver Warriors.
It's crazy. There's been some big changes with the Warriors. My personal favorite, Brad McCulley, has left the Vancouver Warriors. Now he's a Rochester Nighthawk. I don't even want to talk about it. I was just saying this earlier. I don't have personal beef with the Vancouver Warriors. I cannot stand the Rochester Nighthawks. So that is definitely going to be hard to see him in those jerseys over there. But we're going to get by. It's going to be fine. He's closer. Just bring him like an hour closer to Buffalo.
Right. Absolutely.
No Rochester. Please, no Rochester.
I think if Vancouver wanted to trade McCulley, I think he totally could have come back to Buffalo.
Yeah.
I absolutely think he could. I think he would have been very welcome to Buffalo. And the Bandits' offense has been solid. You know, we talked earlier about like some struggles that Tahoka Anacoke had. He's had some decent games.
He's coming back.
Yeah, and you know what the Bandits have needed to see offensively has more or less been there. The game on Saturday, it wasn't the offense. The defense in Matt Vince looked really, really rough in a 17-11 loss to Calgary.
It was just, oh God. It was just not their game, and it happens. You know, it's bound to happen. You still #1 in the league, which is great. We've seen some kind of crazy upbringings in the standings, by the way. Colorado Mammoth is now 3rd in the league. What happened to them being in like the absolute bottom, which kind of scares me a little bit. I don't like the Mammoth, but I don't know. It's just, it was such like, we were starting out in such like a happy note. Dane Smith, he was playing his 400th he got his 400th NLL career goal. Josh Byrne played his 100th NLL career game. Great, awesome, do it in Banditland, that's fantastic. We started out right off the bat with a Dane Smith goal, and it all went downhill from there.
It's just, and the fact that, so the Bandits overall, 9-2 on the season, both of those losses at home, which is a little bit surprising. I mean, last year they had, you know, some of their losses. They had the overtime loss at Vancouver. They had the loss, you know, the loss against the Riptide, which was on a Friday night. And we all know Friday Night Banditland is cursed.
Yes, 100%.
Friday Night Banditland is absolutely cursed. But it was a Saturday game. You're playing against Nick Rose for the 3rd time this year, and it's just like, oh, I don't like losing to Nick Rose like that. It's after Rose was traded from the Toronto Rock after playing 2 games against the Bandits already this year, and the Bandits beating him both times. Nick Rose goes to Calgary. Now he gets the win in Banditland on Saturday, and these two teams are going right back at it this weekend up in Calgary. That'll be an interesting rematch.
Yeah, 100%. It makes me so angry because our 2 losses for this entire season have been to 2 middle-of-the-road teams. These teams, Calgary is not good. The San Diego Seals, better, still not great. The Roughnecks are now, I believe, 7-6? Yeah, okay, they were 6-6 before this weekend. Not great by any means. And they destroyed us. Curtis Dickinson with Mr. Sock Trick, Curtis Dickinson? Hello, no, we don't, the thing that makes me so upset is that the highest number of goals that was scored by a single Bandits player was Kyle Buchanan with 2. Normally, we've got Josh Byrne showing up with like 4, maybe 5. Maybe even Josh Byrne is Mr. Sock Trick. We don't know.
We've seen it.
I saw him at I believe it was against the Riptide, put up 7 on them in one game.
Did it this year too.
Insane. Like, just crazy. I don't know what we're doing. I'm going to mention Steve Priolo because he is not my favorite player. He took 16 penalty minutes.
Jeez. And that's not the type of leadership that you want your captain to have.
He's our captain. If you don't know this, to the people at home who don't know, he is our captain.
Yeah, you can't, as a captain, you can't be in the box that much. And that's, I live text my mom during all of the Bandits games. I was in New York City at a conference, so I was like missing most of this game. But the text that I seemingly get from my mom every week is, the Bandits got to stay out of the box. And she's right, because they have taken so many penalties this year, and they've given up a lot of goals as a result. And Matt Vince is a goaltender who obviously is older, overall been good this year, but you can't continuously leave him in a tough position by always finding yourself shorthanded. The Bandits really need to do a better job of playing a cleaner game and staying out of the box. 16 penalty minutes in one game is ridiculous from anyone. The fact that it's coming from your captain who's been with the team for a decade and a half, it can't happen.
It's so insane. I would love to see a captain change, and I've been saying this for a while, but this kind of just solidifies it for me. Nick Weiss or Dane Smith for captain. I think I would vouch more for Nick Weiss for captain. I think he's a great player. I think he's great in the locker room, and he really brings the whole team together. He's been there for so long. Nick Weiss for captain. Buffalo Bandits, if you're listening, earmuff Steve Priolo. Nick Weiss could do a better job than you, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, and Priolo, it's like we know that, we know he's a team leader. He's been with the Bandits forever, but you cannot find yourself in the box that much if you're a leader on the team. It's just not, that does not lead to success. And you have your defensive struggles. Again, going back to you can't take too many penalties. remember, one of your defensemen is out. Matt Spanger's out for the rest of the year. So even more so, you find yourself shorthanded, and you might have players like Zach Belter or Paul Dawson or Cam Wires are now going to find themselves on the floor a lot more. They're going to be strained a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, and then you're going to have to put players in that you might not really want to put in as much. You know, like Justin Martin is a depth player, but he might be playing more of a prominent role, and I don't know if that's what the Bandits want. So it's just, it's a little frustrating to see them take this many penalties and go to the box this much. And really, I think defensively they have to tighten up in front of Matt Vince, and there's obviously questions about him. Matt Vince is 42 years old. Is this his last year? I thought last year was going to be his last season.
Go out on a bang.
Right. He stays around for this year. He himself has been pretty good. The team's been pretty good, but there's been some games like the game on Saturday where it didn't look so great defensively for the Bandits.
I completely agree. And I think that, Vince did what he could. I would have liked to have seen maybe a couple more saves, but like we were saying, the defense, I mean, those are your guys. That's your job, is to make sure that when stuff goes wrong and Vino isn't making that save, you're there. So, I don't know. I think Cam Wires has been a great player so far this season. I think he's been, holding his own. I think he's been doing really well. I think we're putting a lot of pressure on players like Ian McKay to take quite literally like every role other than like face-off and goalie. Mike King out here, he's doing what he can, but I don't know. We got to figure this defense out. So I'm hoping with these new players, this might be help to an answer. We can, take this little slump and we can use it, and we can use it to motivate us throughout the rest of the season. Three-peat's got to happen. I'm not giving up on it.
I was talking the other day, and I was talking again to my mom, and I mentioned how the Bandits do seem to hit sort of this mid-season slump. It's kind of happened the last few years, and that's to be expected. I mean, you have an 18-game season. You're not going to win them all, though we thought when they were 7-0 they might win them all. It's, they got to a point where they're undefeated, had that first loss. Now they've had another tough one. Overall, you're still sitting at 9-2. You're still in first place in the league, although I saw the power rankings just switched Saskatchewan and put the Rush ahead of the Bandits, even though the Bandits have a better record and beat them in Saskatoon, but that's that's really beside the point. The rest of the season schedule is just going to be a matter of you got to take care of business when you're at home, and if the Bandits can do that, I think they can ensure that no matter what, they have the advantage. They have that home advantage in the playoffs, and that will be deadly if the Bandits can make it there.
Completely agree. I mean, if we can get over the slump that we did last year, last year was not looking great. I was really worried that we weren't going to be able to go for that second win, which obviously we did, and that was incredible. That was great. Loved it so much. But I don't know. I think I've said this a million times on this show before, but I think we have the talent and we have the ability to keep going. They just need to remember how to play. Go back to that team from, oh my gosh, what year was it now? Was it 2022 that they won their first championship?
23,
23. Okay, so years are, guys, 23. Time is a concept. But I don't know. We got to go back to that. They looked really great that season. They looked really great last season too.
They
Not
did.
as great.
I mean, they didn't lose a game in the playoffs last year, and I still think about the defensive effort that they put on in the elimination game in 23 against Colorado, only letting in 4 against a Mammoth team that beat them in the championship the year before. I think that you're not expecting a defensive effort like that for the Bandits, but your defense is solid and you can play like that. So the rest of their season schedule, as we said, they're at Calgary on Saturday.
Right.
Their other games, March 21st at home against Vegas. That is a Friday night, but the Las Vegas Desert Dogs are one of the worst teams in the National Lacrosse League. They are dead last. That is another game in the Tucker Out Lymphoma Cup, as well as, of course, Tucker Williams' father, Sean, is the head coach and GM of the Desert Dogs. They have a doubleheader that weekend, so they're home against Vegas and then at Albany. Both of those games are Tucker Williams' Memorial games, as Tucker's brother, Dyson, plays for the Albany Firewolves.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. March 29th at home against Vancouver. April 5th at Colorado, April 12th home against Halifax, and they finish out the regular season April 19th at Georgia. So there's the opportunity. I mean, you play the games against Halifax, Vancouver, Vegas. Those are home games that you should win.
Right.
Going to Albany. Albany's really struggled this year. Going to Georgia in the last game of the year. Georgia's been decent, potentially a winnable game. You know, the game at Colorado at the beginning of April could be tough, but overall I think it's a manageable schedule the rest of the way for Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And like I said, they have the talent to do it. We just need to do it. I think, you know, if they watch back the footage from Saturday's game and they learn and we pick things up and we, you know, integrate things with Ron John and our, oh my gosh, what is his name? Keel Matisse?
Yes.
We got it. We got it. We've got the talent. We've got the ability to do it. Just we gotta lock in.
You just gotta go and do it. Absolutely. Well, we're gonna take a short break. Thanks as always for joining me to talk lacrosse, Lily. Happy to do it anytime, of course, as the Bandits finish out what hopefully will be a third straight championship season. We're gonna take a short break, and then to finish out the show, Brock Papke is gonna join me to talk about NASCAR. I'm Matt Volz, and you're watching Sports Hour on WNYF.
We've been down there. You gotta do the same. Post office, all you do is sign. So don't get nervous. Sign your name. For selective service, it takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. For selective service.
Hey guys, if you're about to turn 18, you've got to register with Selective Service. It's simple. Just go down to the post office, fill out a card, and turn it in. That's all there is to it. There's no draft now. You're just adding your name to Selective Service's list in case there's a national emergency.
So if you're 18 now, Selective Service, you gotta get down to the post office.
Register with Selective Service. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the law.
Takes no time. Just sign on the line at the post office. Selective Service.
Welcome back to Sports Hour on WNYF. To finish out our show tonight, I am joined by Brock Papke, and we're going to talk about NASCAR. And well, Brock, in the Cup Series, 3 straight wins for Christopher Bell as he takes home the win at Phoenix on Sunday. He is the first driver to win 3 races in a row since Kyle Larson in 2021. And Brock, early on in this season, Christopher Bell has been absolutely dominant. I mean, 4 races, he's won 3 of them.
Yeah, that's really amazing, Matt, that Christopher Bell happened to win that much. It's been a really great year for Christopher Bell for like winning each race, and well, gladly he's just doing well for himself and just defeating the competition like that. But yeah, what do you think about the entire situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think I did not get a chance to catch the race as I was on a lengthy drive back from New York City. But you know, the fact that Bell has had this level of dominance, I remember Christopher Bell from when he was in the Xfinity Series, and he was a very promising driver. I mentioned last week sort of the issues with Joe Gibbs Racing and how, you know, Ty Gibbs has had a terrible season so far this year, and they really haven't gotten what they've needed out of Chase Briscoe in the 19 car either. Denny Hamlin hasn't been a huge factor so far this year. He's had a solid year, hasn't been a huge factor. Christopher Bell has been absolutely remarkable for that team. He has been what JGR absolutely needs in that 20 car. The way that Bell has been able to be successful at different tracks, I've always sort of said that your top drivers are drivers who can be so versatile and who can be good at different tracks. Christopher Bell has now won, you know, he won at Phoenix last week. He won at Circuit of the Americas, which is a very challenging road course. And he also won at Atlanta as well. So he's a very early candidate for the championship this year. Would not be surprised at all if he ended up coming out on top, Brock.
Yeah, no, I really hope for that to happen because the dominance he's been showing for the past few weeks, and it's more or less how like he's been doing like, you know, the cars go vroom vroom, so he vroom vroom very fast. So he just practically just does all that. He is the fastest out of all of it. He's doing all this stuff, and I'm really proud of what he can achieve at this point.
Yeah, and the race next week, looking ahead to next week's Pennzoil 400, which is at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Vegas is a track that has some similarities to Atlanta and Phoenix, so it'll be interesting to see, can Bell keep that going and win a fourth race in a row? We've also seen in the past where drivers have won a ton of races but not gone on to win the championship. My mind, I can think of two right off the bat. My old favorite driver when he was in the Cup Series, Jimmy Johnson, in 2004, the year I was born. Jimmy Johnson won like 8 races that year and didn't win the championship. Kurt Busch beat him out in what was the first year of the chase. You know, in 2020, the dominance between Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. Kevin Harvick won like 11 races in 2020, and he didn't even make it to the championship 4. Denny Hamlin, I think, had 6 or 7 wins that year. And Hamlin didn't win the championship. Chase Elliott only won 3-4 races. Elliott wins the championship that year, which obviously made me happy as a Chase Elliott fan. But I think that for Christopher Bell, it's a matter of, okay, sure, you can be at the top of the line, you can win all these races early. How's he going to sustain that success as the year goes on? And the 2 race winners, which it's crazy to think about the fact that we've had 4 races in the regular season so far and only 2 different winners, but Bell and William Byron, who won his 2nd straight Daytona 500, those 2 are going to pose major threats for a championship this year. And moving forward through the season, it'll be interesting to see how they run, especially can they compete at sort of the bigger tracks? How will William Byron do when they go back to Daytona later this year? How will those guys do at Talladega in a few weeks? That race coming up in a little over a month on April 27th, the Jack Links 500. But you've got some other drivers who are probably thinking, can you let us win one sometime?
No, apparently not at this point. No. Like the Byron and the Bell is just basically that good. So I think no one else can like beat them at this point, man.
Yeah, I think some other drivers who have sort of caught my eye this year. Of course, there's been some drivers that have really struggled this year. I mean, I already mentioned Ty Gibbs, who has been terrible so far this year. And that dating back to the end of last year as well. Ty Gibbs just has not at all been what was expected of him whatsoever. You have Austin Cindric in that 2 car. Austin Cindric, in some of the runs that he's had in the Daytona 500, running for Penske, I would expect him to be near the top of the standings. He's sitting in 32nd place in the points right now. Brad Keselowski sitting in 33rd. I know it's very early in the season so far, but you've got some racers who have really not gone to the level that you would expect them. And on the flip side of that, you've also had some who have had very solid seasons so far this year. I mean, some you have the usual suspects, obviously Byron and Bell are the top 2. Tyler Reddick, who had an amazing year last year, is in 3rd in the standings. Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott rounding out that top 5. You also have Denny Hamlin in the top 10. Kyle Busch in the top 10. Joey Logano in the top 10. Not a surprise. Kyle Larson in 11th, maybe a little lower than you would expect from him. John Hunter Nemechek sitting in 13th. He's had a pretty solid season so far this year. You've got Ross Chastain sitting at 16th, Carson Hocevar in 18th as well, and Hocevar has sort of been the source of some controversy so far this year, where it's been, you know, Hocevar is a very aggressive driver, and there's been some frustrations with overly aggressive driving with him so far this year, Brock.
Yeah, there has been like a few of them. I think we discussed last week about the entire thing about that. But I'm glad like where we are right now in terms of racing, because it's we got Bell and Byron just killing it, as the kids these days would say. We also have Larson just also killing it. But like, just like the people that you mentioned that are on last place, I'm just personally thinking they should just drink more Red Bull just so they can just like drive better. I know from experience, but still, I think it's just more or less just like how the people are these days with like driving and try to be safe, except for like you being that one guy. But still, That's my take on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other main thing that took place at Phoenix was the first woman to start a Cup race in several years, as Catherine Legg in the number 78 Chevrolet car ended up starting the race in 37th and finishing. She did not finish the race. Ends up officially in 30th. But it's we haven't had a female driver headline the Cup Series since Danica Patrick, roughly a decade ago. So
it was that long.
Yeah.
My God.
I know. It's crazy to believe, but yeah, Danica Patrick was about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, that she was one of the headline drivers in the Cup Series, and of course the disappointing end to Danica's Cup career was difficult. And seeing drivers like Catherine Legg break onto the Cup Series, we've seen female drivers be able to break through in the lower series. We've seen it happen in the Truck Series and in the Xfinity at time. The Cup Series has been very difficult for female drivers to break into. So, the hope is that more drivers like Catherine Legg will break onto the scene, and obviously best of luck to her, and we'll see if she starts any more races this season.
Yeah, I really hope for that. I'm sorry, I'm just more focused on the Danica Patrick part because I just realized how old I am.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's been a decade so far.
Uh-huh.
I just didn't occur to me that she left that long ago. I thought it was probably less than that, but still. But no, for the other driver, I really hope for her to break through with all that and just simply put, just win. Just win.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm looking back to see when Danica Patrick's last race was the 2018 Daytona 500, which was 7 years ago.
Are you serious?
The look of expression on Brock's face says it all, that we are all getting old, folks. It has really been that long.
I was listening to Astro World when it got released back then. What the heck is going on?
I know. It definitely, we're all getting old, is the moral of the story. So, upcoming races on the Cup Series schedule, I already mentioned it, next Sunday, heading out to Las Vegas, a 3:30 p.m. start, the Pennzoil 400. The next few races, going down to Florida, the Homestead Miami races, Straight Talk Wireless 400 on March 23rd. The Cookout 400 at Martinsville on March 30th. I'm so excited for this 4-week stretch, end of March, beginning of April.
Yes.
4 weeks in a row. Yes. We have Martinsville, Darlington, Bristol, and Talladega. What more could you want as a NASCAR fan? And then the race at Texas is the next week to absolutely ruin all of it because no one cares about Texas Motor Speedway. But anyways, any final thoughts, Brock?
If you're the owners of the Texas Speedway, just no one cares about you, man.
They're the reason NASCAR left North Wilkesboro, and I will never forgive them for it, although NASCAR has gone back to North Wilkesboro. As they have the NASCAR All-Star race there on May 18th, which is the race that is right before my birthday, and I could not ask for a better birthday gift.
Just leave Texas at that point. That's all I had to say.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Brock, for joining me, as always, to talk about NASCAR, and thanks to our other analysts, Jenna and Lily, as well as everyone behind the scenes here at WNYF. We will catch you next week. I'm Matt Volz. You've been watching Sports Hour on WNYF. We'll catch you in 2 weeks. We have our spring break. I'm Matt Volz. You've been watching Sports Hour on WNYF.